at Rome and the AP writing for Rome. So let's start. I'm going to do a quick crash course through Rome, then we'll take a look at the three writing prompts. So a review. Greco-Roman, the Romans basically copy the Greeks. So you see great similarities between the two. The Romans are going to add, though, the idea of a republic. So they're going to expand from a direct democracy to a republic. So they basically take the Greek ideas, they copy them, and they make them better. Roman Republic was huge. This was the world back then around the year 0. Okay, for Roman sculpture, there's the ancestor worship you see with the Roman patrician. And then, but the main thing about the Romans is they're builders. And so they often boasted about making a better world. As builders, key invention is concrete, because concrete's going to give them the arch. Remember, the Greeks don't have an arch. If you take an arch and extend it, it turns into a barrel vault. If you take 2 barrel vaults, you can make a groin vault. If you spin an arch, you can get a dome. The Romans are going to make massive, massive buildings like no one had ever done before. All right, we'll come back to that prompt in a second. They also made villas and were wealthy. One of your images is the atrium house of Pompeii, which is a villa for a private wealthy citizen. We're going to come back to that later. Okay, the Republic's going to turn into an empire with Caesar. And he was the great general who became an emperor. And if you read the play, they killed Caesar on March 15th. But there's going to be a tension in Roman history between the emperor and the republic and the senators, and it's going to coexist for about 400 years. All right, main important thing is called Pax Romana. For about 200 years, from about 0 to about 200, it's peace throughout the world like no one had ever seen before. So the Romans felt they brought peace and that they were meant to rule. All right, their first emperor is Augustus, and that's Augustus of Prima Porta. And we did that one before, but he looks a lot like Doryphoros. So the Romans' sculpture is about propaganda, power, authority. They use sculpture for propaganda. They appropriate the Greek ideal of Doryphoros, but the idea is the Greeks were great, Augustus is great, the gods like Augustus, so it's a nice example of propaganda sculpture. Okay, now for the buildings, the main thing with the Roman buildings is they were big and massive. The Colosseum, giant amounts of space. The purpose is entertainment, and so you have a culture that builds giant buildings for entertainment. The other one to be aware of is the Pantheon, and that was at the height of the Roman Empire. Pan is all, Theo is God. That was the idea that the gods smile on the Romans. There's the massive facade and the famous dome on the inside. And the oculus would be the eye of Zeus, who comes in and basically smiles on the Romans, and the use of concrete. And the light moves throughout. And on this one, too, the idea really is about space. The Pantheon is really defined by a perfect sphere, the idea of perfection, geometry that they take from the Greeks, and perfect space. And there's the arch. Okay, now let's take a look at the prompts. Oh, there's the Colosseum again, Colosseum, and the Pantheon. Now let's take, and then the last one is the Forum of Trajan. The Forum was to emphasize the glory of the emperor, and this, of course, was Trajan, and you would build a forum for propaganda. It had 2 purposes. One was practical. It was a place you could hang out like a park. It was City Hall at the Basilica. It was a mall at Trajan's Market. So on the one hand, it was very practical. He built buildings that you could use. On the other hand, it was propaganda. It emphasized how great Trajan was. And that can really be seen on the column of Trajan that rises above all the other buildings. Trajan's on top. And the column here tells the story of how Trajan conquered the Romanians. But one thing on the column of Trajan, 90% of it is not warfare. It's about the Roman system of building bridges, of building, of transforming a wild land into a civilization. So it's about the idea of the Roman way of life. All right, so for our AP prompts here, we'll just work backwards. In 2017, they asked one on the column of Trajan. And they said, what was the practical function of the column of Trajan? Well, it was a place to gather, it was City Hall, and it was a place you could shop like a mall. What is the symbolic function of the forum? Because it's so big, it shows how great Trajan was. And then what is the role of the column? The column emphasizes Trajan as the great leader, and the story on the column emphasizes the superiority of the Roman way of life. This is not to say that you're born great because you're a Roman, but the Romans had the best way to live, and that's what they show here in their column. All right, then the other prompt is about building, and it was about, if they ask about building, either the Pantheon or here we go, the Pantheon or the Colosseum, the construction materials. The new material, concrete. The new building techniques, the arch, the vault, the groin vault, and the dome, those basically just create space. So you would just say the Colosseum creates great amounts of space. The Pantheon creates great amounts of space. And then function, the function of the Colosseum, entertainment. The function of the Pantheon, religious, or to show that the gods basically smile on the Romans. All right, so that's Roman building. We already did Roman sculpture of Doryphoros, and that's it.